Welcome back, everybody, to the Boulder Comedy Show podcast. You all know me. I'm still the same old G. Before we get started with our podcast, as always, this show and our live show is presented by our fantastic sponsors over at Big Top Studios, Terrapin Care Station, Pearl Street Dental, and our alcohol sponsors, Tommy Knocker Brewing and Pilsner Urquell. Thank you to them for consistently supporting our show for the past several years and for the several years to come. They're all local businesses, so if you enjoy them, please make sure you buy their weed, you drink their beer, and you let them clean your teeth. Today on the show, joining us all the way from Los Angeles. So before we bring in Steve, just a heads up, we did have a few audio glitches during this recording. I'd say 96% of the time you can figure out what he said with context clues. And another 2% of the time I filled in the blank when it was frozen. But just a heads up, bear with us a little bit until we can get people in studio with us. We're going to have a few glitches. I recorded this on Friday afternoon when internet traffic is at its highest, so I apologize for that. But other than that, great episode. Enjoy. As the very funny comedian Steve Hernandez. Steve Hernandez, welcome, my man. How are you?
It's great to be here, Brent. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. We're in the middle of a quarantine right now for those of you who are watching this late in life. So all things considered, I'm doing okay. How about your day?
Oh, my day's fine. I mean, you know.
That's a fair answer.
I just woke up a little bit ago, so I don't care. Cruise through my phone. How long do you, when you wake up and you look at your phone, how long do you usually look at your phone for?
Oh, man, no one's ever asked me that, and I've been happy that they've never asked me that because it's embarrassing. I'll be honest with you. I typically, and I'm going to be honest, it's anywhere between 1 to 3 hours that I'll lay in bed while looking at my phone.
If I get out of my bed and like start living life after 1 hour, that would be an accomplishment.
That'd be a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
There's nothing more embarrassing than when you wake up and you're on your phone, and the next thing you know, you're getting out of bed and you've lost 40% of your battery. Because you got to recharge before you even get out of the bed.
Oh yeah, no. I charge my phone in the kitchen, so my wake up thing is to wake up and go grab it, turn it on, and like go back to bed.
And so you got to physically get out of the bed to get it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to have it. I'm concerned about any kind of like having the shit near my head and stuff when I'm sleeping.
Sure.
But yeah, I get up. I mean, I'm still asleep, but I get up, go to the other room, grab it, turn it on, turn back, and just hit the sack. Move over to Julia's side of the bed. Julia is my girlfriend, a comedian also.
Julia Loken, real funny, yeah.
Yeah, move over to her side of the bed because I'm fat. I'm almost 300 pounds, so my side's all dented in. So I moved to her side of the bed. It's nice and cool. She's like gone off somewhere. It's nice and cool, and it's fluffy because she's not fat. And just start hitting the net, baby. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and especially, that there was I think before all the Black Lives Matter stuff took off, I was literally off my phone 50% more than I used to be. They give you the update on Sunday on the
off
iPhone.
of it.
Yeah. There was no reason to be on it. Everyone was in quarantine. Not much was happening. So
Sure.
I would do pretty good to leave it in the other room. And, either we're watching movies or going for walks. We're handling quarantine pretty well. But then once Black Lives Matter stuff started, it's like now I have a reason to be on the phone again all the time.
Yep, and glued to it. Yeah.
That one week, my Apple thing said which is up 50%. So it was like, so, I mean, that's literally like 4 or 5 extra hours a day.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah. Just hunched over, looking at your phone, just, fucking your posture up.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I'm laying in bed, it's just cruising for police brutality videos. I was off of Facebook for so long. I have it there. As you know, it's like
Facebook's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I know my aunt is on there, my mom, the people who are still on Facebook generally, anything very personal on Facebook. I don't want to offend anyone or anything.
Sure.
But once Black Lives Matter stuff started, because I love Twitter, I'm on Twitter all the time, and it's like a pretty valid news source where you're getting everything uncut.
Yep.
So I was just cruising for Twitter videos, looking for stuff, and then posting on Facebook, taking it over to Facebook. I blocked 5 people, I think, like the first couple of days right off the bat, which I don't do that usually. I'm actually a big fan of. I think I'm doing my best all the time to really not judge people for how they are on the internet.
Boy, that is an exercise that I don't know if I could accomplish. Well, all I do is judge people. I have come to the point where I'm like, I don't like this person as a human being because of their social media.
I know. I've had that happen too, and I just don't. I just think, as much as the internet is a tool for people without a voice and everything, I just think there's so many people who shouldn't have it. I almost think it's like kind of a disease in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I see John Toll in real life, I'm happy to see John Toll generally. You know what I mean? I like seeing John. He's nice. But whatever he's doing on the internet is just a fucking mess.
Holy Lord. I mean, so John Toll used to host our live show every now and then. If he like, I got a roster of probably about 3 to 5 comics that I'll let host the show and everything. John was one of them, always ran the show well, very professional, always did what I wanted to, above and beyond, like in terms of the door and stuff like that. And then when I told people, I was like, yeah, I love John. He's doing great. They're like, really? I'm like, you got to see him in person. He's much better in person than he is online. Because online, fucking nut job online. And I'll say it to his face. He's wild online, but
yeah. Last time he came to LA, when he comes to LA, we have lunch. And we talk for 2 hours about a bunch of different weird shit and stuff too. But I mean, I like Sean. He's nice. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know. I think the internet might activate a part of people's brain. And I also think there are people who are kind of naturally trolls, and I have affection for trolls sometimes, so I don't want it to come off like I'm saying negative stuff, although I don't like the shit John posts. But I think there are people who just like to troll people, or especially in this instance, there's people who like to call out the hypocrisy of both sides, and it's like, yeah, bud, the world is full of
so
you're not doing anything for me by pointing this out.
Say that one more time. Internet's froze. The world is full of what?
Okay. Yeah, the world is full of hypocrites. It's something it's something I learned when I was 13 years old. Yeah. So when there are people who keep pointing out, wow, the left thinks this, but the right, it's like, give me a break. We know. Give me a break.
It's so infuriating. A lot of the time, I just will absolutely stay off of it in general. Facebook is my last. I mean, I guess Twitter is, just because I never really took to Twitter myself. But Facebook, it at least the people, and I'll talk shit about the Denver scene all day long. The Denver scene has made me not like Facebook, because these people are posting about shit that doesn't matter, and I'm getting messages and screenshots. I'm like, I don't fucking care. Leave me out of this.
Well, when I came to do the Boulder show for the first time last August, I started friends with a lot more Denver people, and then I did tweet jokes pretty quick, because Denver is so funny. They are always on Facebook, like posting like long paragraphs, like of everything. And it's the only scene that I've ever seen do this, but they are fun. They just love jamming out on Facebook.
Dude, manifestos. They're like writing novels and shit, like calling people out. It's wild out there in Denver. I'm like, Denver, what are y'all doing? Y'all need to relax a little bit. We are in the land of legal weed and mushrooms. Just chill a little bit, It's wild. Yeah. Welcome. I I have stopped looking at Facebook. It is funny to see what scenes are like what their preferred platform is. I've always loved Instagram. I felt like it's the least amount of I guess high stress, it's the least amount of pissed off people, but Instagram, Facebook, we lost you again. There we go. I feel like I should probably do this a recording from here on out in the evening when everybody who works from home isn't on the internet plug.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel like Instagram is what Facebook used to be. So it's like just fun. What post those police brutality videos over there too. Don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but you just don't have you just don't have as much, paragraphs of stuff, even though people do post that other thing. But
it's way easier to skip. It's way easier to just not hit view more.
Exactly.
And just keep rolling,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So Instagram is still like, that's my normal posting. And then Twitter is like where I really let out like a bunch of jokes.
Yeah.
And like, I'll talk about sucking dick and just doing crazy shit. Like stuff like, where I'm like, I guess if you want to follow me, I remember my mom joined Twitter. My mom's a very like strong Christian. Like she's very much into the Bible and all that stuff. And at some point she joined Twitter and we were talking about it or something. And I was like, hey man, if you want to follow me, I was like, you're going to be mad though. So, and so she just hasn't. I mean, my parents have never seen me do stand up. They never.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. How do you feel about that? Does that bother you?
No. I mean, I think at some point it did. My mom wanted to, but it's just my mom gets mad if I accidentally like curse and say like shit or something like that.
Oh, gotcha.
So you're not going to want to watch. You're not going to want to watch jokes about me getting railed. At some porn shop or something. So it's just, I remember one time she was going to come watch me and Julia at a West Side show. I was headlining that Friday night show that Neil Nanda hosts. And,
Unnecessary Evil, I think is what it is.
Yeah, that's what it's called. And I was just, the day before, I was just like, don't come. We literally get into fights if I curse too much. So it's like, if you're, Mom, don't do that. You love me. You like me.
Don't put yourself through it.
Yeah, and then I'm just going to be worried about offending my mom. I love my mom. We'll have every 5 weeks or so, she'll come over for lunch. This is before COVID. And we'll just talk about God for like 5 hours. So,
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a pastor. You know that, Brent, right?
I did not know that. You used to be a pastor?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I grew up at church. I grew up in a church called Faith Community in West Covina. As I got older, it became a mega church. So by the time I left there, when I was like 23 or something like that, I think at like 13 or 14,000. I was the student ministries director and youth pastor. So I was the college pastor and the high school pastor. We had a junior high pastor, and then we had probably about 50 adult like volunteers that we would run it was all like a whole huge thing. Have you heard of Rick Warren's purpose-driven? Have you heard of Rick Warren's church, Saddleback?
No.
I forgot what the name of this book that he released. It was huge. He's this big Saddleback Church is in Orange County.
Okay. Orange County.
His church is Saddleback is as big as it's one of the biggest churches in America. Although there's some big ones down in the south, but they got like 50,000 people in Saddleback.
Wow.
Yeah, but he wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Church, which is kind of a model how to get people to come into your church and stuff. All that to say is that's the model we adopted. So They'd have these huge events, like a huge free event where we trick kids into coming to church.
Yep.
Then I would, personally, I would save their soul from hell. And then they would start coming on Sunday mornings. After Sunday mornings, we want to get them into a small group for Wednesday nights. And then the best of the best of Wednesday nights, you put them into a leadership program. So I was always planning events and trips and writing sermons and all that kind of shit. So I'm able to access. I still can talk. Uh, so I have access to. I can still talk the way like my mom understands.
Yeah.
I think they call it like code switching. They would say that for race stuff, but it's not dissimilar. So me and my mom would talk about God for 4 hours, and to be fair too, the same place I would go to write sermons and come up with those ideas and everything is the same place I go to write jokes. So they're not dissimilar. Like the Holy Spirit, that thing that I would call the Holy Spirit, I still believe I think it's just your conscience.
Yep.
And I do believe that that thing, I still try to live my life by what my conscience tells me to do. So instead of saying like what I just told you, I tell my mom, yeah, I listen to the Holy Spirit. And I am always listening to to write jokes about, how to live my life and all these different things. So it's easy I don't have any problem. I don't believe in God like that, like a person.
Right.
But I do believe in whatever this, I do believe that that we're all interconnected and that there's a reason that humans function the best when they're functioning in love. I think that we function the most optimally.
Yeah, that's a good point when we're focusing on love. Yeah. Now, I wonder, Steve, is when I've always thought this about religion, that it's always seemed crazy, but as I left the Catholic religion and then became an adult and thought about it, it does seem like religion has a good purpose. It seems like it does instill, as you mentioned, the conscious or the Holy Spirit, whatever that is, and helps people decipher very easily right and wrong, good and bad, what to do, what not to do, how to be a righteous person and not, and whether or not you believe in a man in the sky, or you have a group of spirits following you, or it's just in your head. I do think as not anti-religion, but as not religious as I am, I do feel like that's a pretty good structure there to give people, because then you're right, it does push them into that loving mindset of like, hey, we're all here together, let's be good to people, and then they'll be good to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't I mean, I have a podcast with Amy Miller called Who's Your God, where we talk about religion with comics. And I think I could be pretty anti-religion, just because I think one bad thing that religion does is that people grab onto it so hard because they need to be 100% sure of what's happening right now, of life and all these things. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's going by the Bible. I don't think that's what Christ said at all. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's what he promised at all. And so I do think there's a difference between American Christianity and maybe how it all started off, or all of that kind of stuff. I don't, especially now in these times when we're talking about Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. I went to a rally or a protest on Sunday. It was actually a candlelight vigil for George Floyd on Sunday in Glendale. And I heard a couple of women speak from Black Lives Matter, and they were talking about God in such a way where it was like, I stirred in years about God and righteousness and stuff like that, and which I don't believe in a God like a person, but the things they were talking about, like, I believe in God like that. I believe in that kind of a thing, because and stuff. So I had no problem saying, yeah, if that's what God is, then I'm down with that. The problem with American Christianity, evangelical Christianity, is it's just I don't. It doesn't feel like they're telling the truth to me, and it's the main reason why I do comedy, is to tell the truth.
Right.
So, go on.
Now, what years of your life were you in the church as a pastor and a leader in the church? Because I assume that is what shoehorned you into comedy.
Yeah, kind of. There was almost a 10-year break between me leaving the church and starting comedy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was, I was a funny pastor.
I bet.
I was just telling stories, and about my life and about my walk with God and everything. And then, like, I just switch it at the end and just fucking hoodwink them. You guys ever get lonely, like that kind of thing, talking about Christ and all this stuff. But generally, I was a funny pastor. So I quit being a pastor. I just didn't. I thought that's what God wanted me to
Mm-hmm.
at the church, especially a mega church like ours that was run like a business.
Right.
I just didn't feel like God was there, or that God. I actually didn't feel like God wanted me to be doing it. I'd started drinking some, and I was drinking by myself because I was a pastor.
Yeah.
And I was having sex with my girlfriend, and I felt like this is sin, this is wrong. So I quit. They asked me to not come back to that church for a year, and then so I kind of just spun out after that.
Gotcha.
But I'm such an idiot. I mean, I've always I like to work. I like to have money. So I worked. A new Quiznos opened up like right down the street from that church. I lived in that city, and I just worked at that Quiznos. That Quiznos for a while. I remember one time, right when I'm like making sandwiches, which I'm so stupid. I didn't even think about it or care, but like the old worship pastor came in and got a sandwich, and I was making sandwiches there, and his eyes were so tender. I could tell he like wanted to cry. Like, oh my God, this poor, in retrospect is like about as sad as it could get, unless I was like homeless on the corner. But this guy was just a pastor at this mega church doing great, and then you go and he's working at Quiznos. I mean, he must have been like, oh my, and he was a sweet guy, so I bet you he cried.
He gets in the car, he's like, I'm going to pray for him tonight.
Or just like this poor guy. I mean, they treated him bad. So, and then I worked at a liquor store full time, and then I was a gas station attendant like 3 nights a week for the graveyard shift. The guys who are like sleeping and you have to knock on the thing. Yeah, that was me 3 nights a week. I just started working, and then I got into the restaurant industry. I'm a bartender now at Chatterbox.
Yep, which we'll get into. Yeah, I want to talk about Chatterbox in a little bit.
At a local bar called the Chatterbox for 13 years now.
Yeah.
I worked at TGI Fridays for 6 years before that, Claim Jumper 1 year. So I love the restaurant bar industry. If I wasn't doing comedy, I would be doing that.
Gotcha. Now, how old were you when you started when you're like, you know what, I want to try comedy, and you started getting into it? Because it sounds like it sounds like almost you had a full life before you got into comedy. Like, it seems like there's two types of people. There's people that start wicked early. Like, I started in high school, and then there's the folks that have a life and like, you know what, I'm going to be good at this. And obviously it's amazing how religion and pastors and stuff like that shoehorn into good comics. Chris Rock's father was a pastor as well. It's just, there's something to that cadence and that verboseness of like, how to handle a crowd and just loop them in so they're on the tip of your fingers. So you had that inside of you. When did you decide you wanted to push that towards comedy?
I didn't start till I was 32 years old. So
okay.
It was pretty late. I was dumb. I shouldn't have started. But yeah, I was going to school by that point. I was married, and I was doing really well at school, and I wanted to be an English professor. But something happened with this class. It's kind of a long, stupid story. But there's different points in life where I don't believe in destiny. I think if you believe in destiny.
Sorry, we lost you at you don't believe in destiny, and you think that if you do believe in destiny.
If you do believe in destiny, then you have to believe that God cares about Africa. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't believe in that stuff, but there are different moments when you look back at them and you're like, man, I don't see any other way how this could have happened. And so for that, like in that particular instance, I was doing amazing at school. I was 32 years old, wanted to be an English professor. I loved reading. I loved writing. My wife supported me. We're going full steam ahead. And then I got this one class that would allow me to transfer to UCLA in the summer. But something happened, some kind of clerical error, and it meant I was going to have to go to school for another year. I mean, I really got fucked on it.
Yikes.
But I had a summer free, and at that time, I had just seen Scott Lures, who's one of my best friends, who he did a bringer show maybe a month before, 2 months before, and I went to I think 2 of his bringer shows in a row, and he didn't know about open mics or anything like that, but he was really funny, and I had interviewed him for a podcast a year before I started doing comedy. Adam Carolla had Adam Carolla got fired from the talk radio show here in LA.
Okay.
And the next Monday he was up and running on these things called podcasts.
Right.
And so I had never listened to him before because I was a bartender and stuff, and I couldn't get up that early for his morning show, but remember one time he said, yeah, the best way to do this is to just, start interviewing your friends. And so I talked to my wife, and I was like, if I can get one of these Macs. I was so late on computers too.
One of these Macs.
Well, one of these Apple computers. I didn't even know to call them Macs. But I don't know how I figured it out. But I was like, if I could get one of these Apple computers, I found out about Amazon in like 2006. Like it was like that bad. I was like not on computers, but I was.
God.
And so I've been interviewing just my friends. So I used to. It was a podcast called Respect the Danger of Knives that I did for 5 years into comedy. I stopped at 270 episodes.
Wow.
But I was just interviewing my friends or people I knew, and Sunday night show at Chatterbox on Sundays now. But I just interviewed him, and he was getting into comedy. And it never occurred to me. I didn't grow up. I mean, Eddie Murphy Delirious, yes. Yeah. Like I remember being 7, listening to that tape and going crazy. But I never was a dream of mine to do stand-up or anything like that. And then, so I'd watched Scott a couple times, and then I lost that class. And so I had a summer free, and he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to start going to these open mics. Do you want to go with me? And so me and Scott and the bartender from the Chatterbox, Travis Taylor, and then our friend Steve Spade went to our first open mic in like mid-June 10 years ago now. So I'm coming up.
Oh, there we go. The 10-year mark.
There was,
wow.
Yeah. When you started off, I listened to all these podcasts when you first started doing comedy. So you're supposed to have your voice by like 7 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. So this is a huge moment. But we went to a mic called Casey's that Dave Ross and Jeff Wattenhofer used to run downtown. And that's how I started doing comedy in LA, the East Side alt scene, really.
Yep. Interesting. Okay, cool. So then that shoehorned into so 10 years in, which of course 10 years is my 10th year was my biggest year in my career still thus far. I also think that I didn't reset my own goals after I achieved my goals. So I think that kind of spun my wheels a bit, but I think 10 years is that magic number where you just start seeing things happen and seeing things fall into place. You're like, okay, I know if you do anything for 10 years, it's almost like the 10,000 hour rule. You've been doing it for long enough. You at least kind of know what you're doing, So then you started how long ago did you start Chatterbox, which is your Sunday night weekly show?
I started that 10 years ago. We had the first one right when I started. The first year we were monthly. The second year we were twice a month, and then we've been weekly ever since.
Gotcha. Okay. Now I wanted to ask you this because that might be one of the longest shows. I mean, I know Ron Lynch's show, the Tomorrow Show's been running forever and ever, but that show is one of the longest running shows in Los Angeles, I would say. And you do it on Sundays, just like we do our Boulder comedy show Sundays as well. And I always I'm excited to ask you, do you think there is why did you choose Sunday? Because I know why I chose Sunday, but I'm curious if you had any reasoning behind it, or if it just happened to be the day that they would give you.
Well, I'm very fortunate because the owner of the bar, when they bought the bar, I remember going. His name's Ralph. He's my older brother's best friend since we were little. But I remember he was always like an entrepreneur, and they were going to get him and his partner, and then finally they were like, "Oh, we want to get bar. We'll get a bar." And I went with him to visit a couple of bars before they bought him.
Yeah.
And I remember even at the time he was like, "Oh, if you want to do like comedy or something, you could do it here." I think it was just one of the slowest nights, Sunday
Yeah.
and Monday typically. So to me, it was just like, "Oh, okay, we'll just do something where we're not bothering anybody."
No pressure.
I still feel to this day, I feel bad about running a comedy show at the bar. If people didn't love it so much, but we turn people away a lot now too, especially we were on a real roll this past year.
Yeah.
But we had to like turn people away regularly, or I kick people out of the bar. And I'm fortunate, like I said, so I have run of the place, which is very unusual for a place to have a comedy show at.
Yeah.
So I kick people out of the show. Not all the time, but we give them warnings and stuff. But you can't have a good show if people are fucking around all the time. So
that's
it's like,
right.
I mean, I'd love at some point I got to interview you about your show, because the idea of charging and all that stuff, we're a free show. So the idea of charging is you're like, yeah, I'll kick you out. I'll give you your money back, throw it in their face, that kind of thing. But
my favorite is not giving them their money back. It's very rare that I'll give them money back. Cause I was like, cause I have a 3 warning thing. I will have I typically have a assistant / co-producer person who's a female. And I'll typically have her go say something first, then I'll say something second, and then my door guy will throw them out on the third. Because our door guy, typically the beer garden gets them from the CU rugby team. So it's these fucking jacked dudes coming up to you, and we rarely have any issues. In 7 years, I'd say we've had 2 or 3 bad throwouts. And even when the cops came, that wasn't a bad throwout. Like, we had a dude sitting up front dressed as the fucking Wendy's girl, and room is packed, and the bench has 3 seats to his right, 3 seats to his left, open. No one's there because this guy's so fucking weird. Wouldn't stop. Cops get called. Cops come during the show. The guy looks up at the cops, and I swear to God, just goes, and just stands up and fucking leaves. So, but being able to also have that extra step of like, here's your money back, go fuck yourself, don't come back. It's such a powerful move. Also, too, I find that charging money really sets an expectation for everyone around that shitty person. So they will almost help police the room as well, because they're like, yo, I paid for this. Shut up. Stop bothering this show.
We never paid. My boss never wanted to charge money for it.
Mm-hmm.
So he's given us a different amount of money. We were able to like pay the comics like $10.
Yeah.
We used to have unlimited drinks. Then some comics ruined that.
Of course.
We used to have, I think, like 3. We're down to like 1 drink. But but yeah, I know we've kicked people out. I almost got in a fight once dressed as Santa on one of the Christmas shows.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, these people people can just be so, if they're drinking too, it's obviously it's way worse too. Yeah. But it's like, I understand like what a comedy show is, and we have a very big Latino. We're like a working class Latino and white neighborhood, so we have a lot of Latinos come in. So a lot of times, what Latinos think of as comedy is they really do think of like a Jeff Garcia, like just someone talking trash to them.
Right.
And they like that, or they'll stuff, and it's just like, that's not how we run our room. There are some comedians who like all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But generally I tell them, you're not at home watching novellas. Whatever you're saying in your mouth, keep it inside your head. They're not really talking to you. I mean, we say all this stuff up front and everything. So we're pretty good. Maybe once every 2 months, we got to make a big deal about kicking someone out. Yeah. Especially Sundays, is our football day. Sometimes people just get too drunk.
Sure.
And so it's you're at the show. Our show starts at 9:30. So it's like if you've been drinking all day, you're just too fucked up.
Right. The football games are already done at that point. You're trying to squeeze in one more thing.
Yeah, and it's like you're just too drunk. So there's been times, and I bartend there too. So it's like I'm kicking you out, and I'm like, listen, man, look at me. You're too drunk. You can't be here right now. I'll buy you a drink on Thursday. Come in. I promise you're going to wake up and you'll understand. So it's just like that. But, we've been running that. It's going – I think most of the times – I think you've showed up 3 or 4 times, and almost every one of those times has been a bad night, which is just so funny, where I'm like, I don't want Brent Gill anywhere near this fucking show. There's like it's empty or something like that. I'm like, oh my god,
dude. My unfortunate comic for that is Steph Tolev. She's done both. She's headlined twice within like 2 years, and both times something happened, and it's like 60 people, 80 people in the show. I'm like, Steph, I promise, it's a good show, but
and
don't come back.
60 people in that big room is pretty bad.
Yeah.
But I love it. I've built up. I produce with Lisa Chanou, Scott Lords, and Julia. They've been aboard, I think, 3 or 4 years, which I wouldn't have. How long have you been doing it? Your show?
So we just hit our 7-year anniversary on May 17th, 2020. So we were supposed to be at the Boulder Theater this year, and of course COVID hit, so that didn't happen. So we had a dope little online show for that. But yeah, 7 years. We went to 2 shows on Sundays about 2.5 years in, ish. Something like that. Like we started in May, and then the 2.5 year. I remember the first one was on a Valentine's Day. So because I also knew that we would sell the shit out of that second show because it's something to do. 7 years for sure.
I had a much better time at the second show. I think it was a little lighter, but I talk so much about sex, and it's pretty graphic, but I'm not doing it to be like a dirty comic. That's what I like to talk about.
Right.
But the first show, I remember and everybody was good. It was still a good audience. Don't get me wrong, but it's just, I'm looking at a lot of like faces that look disappointed in me. And I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry. But the second show was like so much fun. So
it's interesting the different, the vastly different audience dynamics of the first and second show. Like the first show, we typically have 25 to 50-year-olds. There's not a lot of students. There's definitely a hearty handful of older people, and that's kind of that's the group that is like, okay, this is the thing to do on Sunday. Whereas the 9:15 show is 21 to 29-year-olds, a lot more students, a lot more folks that have been kind of drinking, and they want that looser show. They've almost been trained to know that the second show is going to be a little dirtier. The second show is going to be a little more fun because we've had a run. And now we're comfortable. We're in the space. We're not rushing to get to the show. I know on my end, a lot of times I'll have more fun and do better on the second show because first show I'm running around setting up the show, seating people, trying to find places to put bodies. There's errors. There's issues going on. The iPad stops work. Who fucking knows? And then it's like, okay, go be funny. Go. So it's definitely a completely different dynamic, and I tell comics, don't treat the shows the same. Treat it like a Friday night early and late show, or that that early show is a different type of audience, and that late show is a drunker, younger, down for a lot more type of a audience.
Yeah, and that's basically what I've trained Chatterbox to be too. So that second show felt like Chatterbox to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super grateful for that. Doing comedy in LA, as you know now, is like not like any place else.
Nope,
There's
it's
like
not.
access generally to like regular people either. So you're never gonna get like a fun audience generally.
Right.
I mean, that's what I think it's so funny when other comics move to LA. I'm like, yeah, it's not what you think it is. The shows are like it's hard to get a good audience. It's hard to get. There's just not that many good shows or anything like that.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very grateful that I had them because I do have a lot of queer material and a lot of people don't mind you talking about sucking dick, but I was very. I think if I were to become like just LA, I couldn't have become the comic I am because I have to go to make this work for these blue collar people.
Right.
So like these are Latino guys that are like. I have this one joke. I don't think you've seen me do it before, but it is after I quit being a pastor. There was a time I used to get drunk. I'd go to these porn shops, and it is about this old guy sucking my dick. And this is one of the first times I had experimented with guys. And
Okay. Sorry. The first time you experimented with guys. That's another hilarious time for the internet to freeze.
All right. So the first time this is like one of the first times I started experimenting with guys. And I remember it's a story about I would go to this porn shop. They have these booths in there. This is a thing everybody knows. And then you put in money and you watch porn in these little booths like in the back of a porn shop. And then guys will hook up there sometimes. So I tell this story about the first time that happened for me. And I was trying to do this right when I started to do comedy. And I mean, this is now I understand like how high level some of this stuff was. But I got into comedy to like tell the truth or to tell my truth. Mm-hmm. And you just have to be very good about it. But I remember trying this stuff and looking in the faces. And at this point, like a straight guy is like, I can't laugh because if I laugh at any of this joke, it means I'm gay. That's just how they think.
Right.
And so I had to become a good comic. And finally, I think around year 5, I finally found the perfect like line that makes everybody laugh. And it just takes a long time to get that good. Yeah. And the line is so funny because I go, this, I say to this old guy's there and he asks me, hey, is it okay? And then I just get quiet and I go, chatterbox. At that point, I had to ask myself a question. It was, Steve, do you want to live the rest of your life knowing you are 100% for sure heterosexual? Or do you want to get your dick sucked right now? And I even say it slower so you can hear like with the pin drop. But at that point, like even straight guys are like, yeah, it's nice to get your dick sucked. So yeah, that line, that was one of my first closers where it was like, that just like murders the room. But yeah. But I mean, it took so long to be able to do that right.
Yeah.
But without Chatterbox, I think I could have probably gotten away with it out in LA. But to me, it's like, yeah, I like to perform for working class people. Right. And so it's hard to take my experience to make that work for them.
Right. And they're real people. That's the other thing too, that like I try to tell comics this both out of state and in LA. I'm like, look, LA is great because there's a lot of opportunity here for other things. However, if you want to do comedy and you want to live in LA, in my opinion, you got to leave at least 1 weekend a month to go perform for normal people. Because Los Angeles is not normal people. And you will be able to be such a more valuable asset if you can appeal to middle America. You know what I mean? If you can tell these, and you don't have to change your jokes. You can tell the same jokes, but you got to be able to relate or make sure that they can either relate to it or at least hear it and be like, oh, that is funny. That I don't see the world that way, but that's fucking funny. And that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I had to do that I had to learn how to do Latino rooms the same way because Latino rooms, like when I was first started too, they were like, I was doing good for like 5 minutes and then they're like, this fool's gay. and they could just smell it on me, and they don't like that right away. I figured out now I could do a Latino room. I could headline a Latino room. I have the time.
Right.
So there's certain stuff that's too queer that it's like I could try to. Right. I mean, to me, that's the other thing too, is when you're starting to get paid and stuff. You know, when I went to Denver, I got paid. I would headline a lot of the shows out there. Getting $100 to do this brewery show. I got 30 minutes. I know right now I have probably before 10 or something like that to choose from. But It's like, okay, I'm going to try I have these little jokes to see what I can get away with. But it's also like, well, I'm getting paid right now, so this isn't exactly for me.
Right.
So I know what my closure is going to be. If they'll let me get away with things, I'll try them, and then I can give you the show that will make me the most happy and you the most happy.
Right.
But I also have a pretty straight ahead. I mean, the whole thing's dirty anyway. You're also going to know that I experiment with guys too. But it's like one is like a 10, the other is like a 7 or 8. Yeah. And I have to adjust to that depending on what they can handle.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, that's what makes the difference between a real working comedian and someone who's just trying to tell jokes. You can put your ego to the side and be like, all right, you don't want it. I'm gonna give you the show that you want then. And
well, I mean, it just becomes so different once, and that's you can't make $100 a show. That felt to me like to be like the regular price in Denver. That you could, if you headline a show, do a 20 minutes, half hour, you get $100.
Yeah,
you don't get that money in Los Angeles anywhere.
Oh no.
If you get, I think Hot Tub pays $25, and that's probably the most you get in LA.
Shit, even the clubs don't pay that much.
Yeah, the clubs pay $15.
It's ridiculous out here.
Yeah,
so
so the Hot Tub, one of the absolute hardest shows to get on. That I'm great friends with the producer Joel Mandelkorn, and I haven't done it in 3 years.
Well, that's one thing that I really wanted to stress when I started Boulder was I wanted to pay my comics to do comedy because I felt like now granted when I started I was only paying them $50 7 years ago, and now this past year I just did taxes and I paid comics from just the Boulder Comedy Show just over $31,000.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
And so I felt like if I'm going to build a show, the comics need to be good. And if I am paying them a decent wage, comparable to what you get at Comedy Works, if not a little bit more, then they're going to bring in their A game. They're going to try. They're not going to spend this time being like, let me go treat this like an open mic, because that's not going to bring the audience back. And so it's definitely being... It's weird out here because all the comics are like, you can't charge for shows. No one pays. I'm like, but I feel like if you did pay, people would try harder. I have found with my Arroyo show, that's not the case. People, even if you pay them, they're still going to fucking work new material. So I'm like, well, why don't we just drop the pay a little bit? If they're not going to give us their A game for $200 or $150, whatever it was at, let's just give them 50 and do what you want. You know what I mean? So,
well, that'll keep you from hating them too. So
right. Exactly. Because I did get angry. I'm like, we're paying you good money. Like, I'll tell you who's a goddamn professional, Jackie Cation, which you already know this, but for our audience here, my Sunday show in Los Angeles, she came in, there was like 8 people there, and she goes, "We're still getting paid?" And yep. She goes, "Okay." And then she did her show. And that's what I want. That's what I want. Because that's what's going to bring people back for the future. So, well, now comedy's all fucked because everything, no one's done comedy except for Dave Chappelle live in 88 days or 3 months, whatever it is. And
that wasn't even comedy.
It was not.
He was just preaching.
Yeah, it really was. I actually like that because me and Dave Borey were talking about that special, and I'm not going to call it a comedy special. I'm going to call it a special because you see he had it, and he had a massive. He's Dave Chappelle, so you assume that Dave Chappelle is going to put out a comedy special, and you get 10 minutes in and it's not quite that funny. So you're like, oh, there's going to be a huge payoff at the end. And then you get to the end and that there is a payoff, but it's not a funny one. And then it's too late. The message is already in your head. The message, you've already listened to the message. And I think that will actually hit those people that are on the fence, that are hiding in the shadows of like, yeah, this is fucked. Like, this is.
You already talking to David Bory about this special?
Oh, I talked to him last night about it. Oh, yeah.
At first I was like, are we talking about the same one? But that's great.
Yeah.
Where did you see Bory at?
Well, Bory lives up the road from me.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. We both live in Valley Village, and who texted? A buddy of mine from Denver texted me that it just released. By the time I clicked on it, it had 68,000 views in 1 hour. By the time I was done with the 27 minutes, it had 170,000 views. It was it had jumped massively since they had put it out.
Well, I think here's the thing about that Chappelle special which is interesting, is if you're building a set, like, Brent, if you're doing 45 minutes,
mm-hmm.
you kind of like use the first 20 minutes to like get them to like you, understand who you are, and then you could kind of do more interesting things near the end.
Yep.
I think Dave Chappelle's whole career has been such
that
he built that thing so that he could just go into a half hour of "This is my heart," and I'm an alt comic. I'm a queer comic. I personally don't understand. I kind of understand, especially when you see this special. But he just kept harping on trans jokes for the past 3 specials. He would have a trans chunk, and that always kind of bummed me out. I knew he didn't dislike trans people,
right?
But I also didn't understand why he just kept doing it. And now I feel like I kind of understand. He even mentioned in the last one is that I think he was just so mad that white people like jumped to this other thing. They were like the champions of this other minority of trans people, that this is their new champion, when this whole time they're still ignoring the plight of black people after all of this time. I think he was just so frustrated, the hypocrisy of like liberal white people, that, oh, this is the new group you're defending and they're still murdering us in the streets. I really do think it wasn't about trans people. It was about the way liberal America had just abandoned blacks.
Right.
And so, I think you see in the special that he just released, this is what this is about. This is why he was talking about trans people, is that. And then this thing that he released too, even for people who think that he just did this. Did you see that Kenny DeForest post?
I did not, no.
He wrote this long thing 5 years ago. Chappelle pretty much did this at the Knitting Factory 5 years ago. And he explains he was kind of teaching this, some white chick, some dumb white chick in the audience, like, said some flippant thing like, oh, yeah, people die, get used to it. And then if you read Kenny DeForest post, it's worth going back to find. The articles have been written about it. But Chappelle, like, talked for a half hour about all of this stuff already. And he's been doing this for years.
Right.
So for him to get up there and, like, just for us to be like, wow, he's a comic still. He's fucking had this in the back of his pocket
for a long time. Yeah.
But all that, I forgot why the fuck I said that. Oh, yeah, no, I remember. Because, that's how you build your set, is you get people to like you, to trust you, and then they'll go anywhere with you.
Right.
And that's what happened.
Absolutely. And it almost, from seeing him, I mean, Dave Chappelle stopped in at the Downtown Comedy Works more times than I have fingers on and toes. And I've probably seen him realistically 17 times. I've seen him so many times, mostly at Comedy Works. And it seems like, yes, you're exactly right. What this is on tape, a taste of what you would get at one of his non-filmed club live shows. You know what I mean? This is the kind of approach and the kind of material that he delivered and would give us in those legendary 3-4 hour sets that he did 5 years ago, however long. And so, yeah, he has been doing this for a while. It's interesting. He did this basically at the knit. That's such a perfect spot for it too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
awesome, because it's this long. Kenny wrote it, and it was like, that's when I was watching it yesterday, the new special. I was just like, oh, this is exactly what Kenny was describing, and it's just as powerful. And it's, I mean, I do. You mentioned it early, but on the Black Lives Matter stuff, good people who live in the suburbs and shit, and they haven't thought about it, or they're like, let's move on. And I hope that this special, and I mean, that's, to me, that's why I think the movement is, it gives it even more validity, is if Dave Chappelle feels like, I got to hurry up and put this out.
Yeah.
Because this is such a moment in history for us to make a stand and to make real change.
Yeah.
I think it validates the movement, and I really feel like it gave me another shot in the arm about, all right, let's keep fighting. Let's fight for real change.
Yep. And it's finally like, this is like, we've been fucking preaching and bitching about this for so long. And it just took the perfect storm of nobody's working. Everyone's been stuck inside for 6-8 weeks before this shit happened. And they're like, fuck all of this. This is so fucked. And now an election season's coming. So I just think that, it was finally that perfect storm of elements, and the cold front came in, which was this George Floyd thing, and everything just blew the fuck up in this massive hurricane. And I love it. It's fucking, it is great. And, Chappelle putting that out, I love it, but I also fear too, like, oh great, now we're going to have all these 4-year comics trying to go up there and preach in their set for 30 minutes, and they don't have the skill and the ability to dictate like what Dave Chappelle could do,
It looks like you're frozen. I'm frozen.
There we go. Yep, we're back.
There you go. I was thinking the same thing when I was watching. I remember when Nanette came out. It's so funny because I love Nanette, the first one. Her new special's pretty bad, Hannah Gatsby. But I remember watching like certain comics like kind of get work. I mean, Chappelle is Chappelle. And it does encourage me, though, to be like, man, this game is so long that the longer you stay in it, the more you build your audience, the more they trust you, the more you tell the truth, even though it might not be beneficial to you in the short run, then they'll go with you anywhere. So for me, I'm like, oh, this encourages me. This makes me want to be a 30-year comic more than anything has ever made me want to do it. Because I'm like, that means if I do this for 25 years, then I can do some very, very interesting things. Because
that really spikes your interest and your fire. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So, if it's special, I hope everyone sees it. We're going too long, Brent. You're going to have to – let's end it.
Yeah. So we are at 58 minutes. Moving forward, let's talk 5 minutes on how do you think, what are your plans post-COVID, right? Because a lot of people have been doing these Zoom shows. I'm finding as more and more have happened, comics are realizing more and more that these Zoom shows completely they're not terrible, but they're pretty damn close. And then you're going to have a whole market of comics that haven't worked in 3 months. What is your plan to move forward? Are you going to be able to do your set or chunks of your set live again? Or are you starting from scratch? What is your game plan here?
I don't know. I think I'm going to be pretty much starting from scratch. You still have those old, but I told you asked me to do the show on Sunday, and I was like, I don't want to do those jokes right now. I think I'll always have them in the toolbox and everything, but I just think it's such an interesting moment in history, and that we as comics have such an interesting skill set that not that many people have. That it might be our job to take some of these high ideas in regards to Black Lives Matter and synthesize them into jokes. I didn't know if I would even be able to do it, or I kind of know I could, but watching that Chappelle special really inspired me to be like, okay, I can do this. There's a way. Not to do what Chappelle's doing, but to be like, all right, well, I'll figure it out. Yeah. I have the skill set. So I think there's a lot of comics hopefully will be like, I'm not interested in distracting anybody really anymore, or I I don't know, man. I'm telling you, I text you back.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. I'm sure once you get on stage, you'll figure it out. But for me, I've never really cared about making it in the industry. It's just never been. That's not the thing that drives me. I used to be a pastor, for God's sake. Obviously, I don't give a fuck looking like a loser. You know what I mean? But I don't. Being out here, it's in LA. It's so fucked because even if you don't care, you're so aware of the industry and about what kind of stuff works on a bigger, broader level. But I really do love this shit as art. So there's a part of me that's like, all right, well, you'll figure it out. I don't want to be up there preaching either. Those are some of the worst comics I've ever seen.
Right.
There's a big famous gay comic that you would definitely know, but who I remember I invited them out to Chatterbox at one time to headline, and they just basically were preaching about stuff for a while. And I'm like, these people don't care if you're gay. Like, have some jokes. Like, just right. So I definitely want to do jokes. So I don't know when we're coming back. I don't know when the Chatterbox would even if we opened up in July or August, with the capacity shut in half. I don't know if we'd have a show or anything like that, but I wasn't biting at the bit, but I'm very excited now. And a lot of that comes from the Chappelle special. So at the very least, Dave Chappelle, thank you for putting that fucking thing up. It makes me want to be like, all right, this is going to be interesting. Let's make it interesting. I'm not worried.
Mm-hmm. You're not worried. Oh, almost had it.
We do have to write all new jokes. Well, I was tired of my fucking jokes anyway. So.
Interesting. Well, man, Steve, I could talk to you for another 3 hours, but if you want more of Steve, you run several podcasts of your own. Anything that you want to pitch to our fans if they like what they're hearing, they want to find more of you? What you got?
I have a horny news podcast called The Male Gaze with Brody Reed and Alan Strickland Williams, a guy named Zed Kutzinger. They're all very funny.
Mm-hmm. We got, there we go. The Male Gaze. Sorry, we're so close.
Yeah.
We're so close. This fucking internet.
My movie podcast is called Views from the Vista. Okay. That's with Zed Kutzinger and Honor Neza. And then I have a religion ethics podcast with Amy Miller called Who's Your God, where we interview comics, kind of talk about what their religious upbringing were and what they believe now. It's a lot of fun. It's very smart. People love that fucking podcast. But yeah, and then find me at Hernia on Instagram, Twitter. I'm Big Hern. If you like what you see, you'll like it. It's fun. I'm good at both of those. You'll have a good time. I try to put out a lot of shit. Thanks, Brent.
Of course, man. Thank you very much. And then, of course, once comedy comes back live, the Chatterbox Comedy Night on Sundays in West Covina at Chatterbox. Steve, thanks so much for chatting with me and starting your day off with me. And stay safe out there, wear a mask, and let's go have some coffee again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, that's our show, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments on the pod, please shoot us your thoughts to bouldercomedyshow@gmail.com, and we'll read them on the next episode at the beginning of the show. Also, if you enjoyed Steve Hernandez, make sure you check out one of his various shows and podcasts. He runs 3 podcasts: The Male Gaze, Views from the Vista, which is his movie podcast, and Who's Your God as well. And he has his live comedy show on Sundays if you're in the Los Angeles area at 9:30, and in West Covina at Chatterbox. Follow him at Hernia online, and on Twitter he's at Big Hern. Also, don't forget, our merch site is live. We have all kinds of cool stuff. We got pint glasses. We got shirts like this fantastic Steal Your Face Grateful Dead inspired Boulder Comedy Show shirt. We also have our classic logo, the buffalo here, and we have the classic lettering as well. All shirts come with free delivery nationwide, so make sure you check out our shop page. And I think that's all we got. Fucking A. Don't forget our live stream every single Sunday until we are live again at the Bohemian Beer Garden. We are streaming our shows live at 7 p.m. Mountain Time at the Boulder Comedy Show website. So just go to bouldercomedyshow.com on Sundays at 7, and you're there. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode of the Boulder Comedy Show podcast. My name is Brent Gill. Goodbye.